Could we actually see a blockbuster deal where Kyle Pitts is moved during the NFL draft? It's a question that's been floating around for months, but now it's back in focus thanks to a new idea from ESPN. One of their hypothetical trades involves the Falcons sending Kyle Pitts to the New York Jets. In return, Atlanta would receive the 7th overall pick, while the Jets would move back to 15th and pick up Pitts. So really, it's Pitts in exchange for an 8-spot jump in the first round. And when you line it up with the traditional draft value chart, the difference between pick 7 and pick 15 equates to the value of roughly the 45th overall selection. That basically makes it Pitts for a mid-second round pick. And for a player whose role has shrunk and whose fifth-year option isn't cheap, that might be more than fair value. Now, personally, I've been open to the idea of Atlanta trading Kyle Pitts. The fit hasn't been great, and the production just hasn't matched the expectations set during his rookie year. But if I'm the Falcons, I'd only pull the trigger on this kind of deal during the draft, not before it. Why? Because once you're sitting at pick 7, there's a real risk that the guy you were targeting is already off the board. Then you're stuck. You've lost Pitts, moved up, and now you're taking a backup plan you probably could have had at 15 anyway. Here's the thing, though. In this class, there aren't many players I'd be willing to trade up for, but there are two that I think would justify a mid-draft move: linebacker Abdul Carter and defensive tackle Mason Graham. Carter is a dynamic athlete with sideline-to-sideline speed and a tone-setting presence on defense. Graham, meanwhile, brings a ton of power and technique to the interior defensive line. After those two, it gets a bit murky. My personal top 10 prospects include Abdul Carter, Ashton Jeanty, Travis Hunter, Tyler Warren, Mason Graham, and Cam Ward in the top 6. But from picks 5 through 10, I'm not fully convinced these guys are long-term Pro Bowlers. This just isn't a very top-heavy draft. That's why, if Atlanta's going to make a move, it better be for someone with game-changing upside. If Carter or Graham starts to slip and the board breaks right, then you absolutely get aggressive. But you've got to let the board come to you. Making that decision before the draft even starts? That's playing with fire. Let's say the Falcons pull it off, they trade Kyle Pitts, move up to the 7th overall pick, and land Abdul Carter. That would be an incredible draft heist. For a team that's been starved for pass rush production, walking away with the consensus top edge rusher in the class while only giving up a tight end on the final year of his rookie contract. That's elite roster management. But again, and I can't emphasize this enough, it all hinges on Carter being available. If he goes at number 2 to Cleveland, which is very possible, the entire plan falls apart. That's the biggest reason why I wouldn't make this trade before the draft. You don't want to climb all the way up to pick 7 and then realize Carter's gone and your fallback options are already taken too. Take Mason Graham, for example. He's mocked to Jacksonville constantly, and I get why. He's powerful, instinctive, and can be a building block on the interior. If he's there, Atlanta could make the move and still win the trade, especially with Grady Jarrett aging and coming off injury. Graham might not replace Jarrett in the locker room or as a leader, but on the field, he could offer even more upside over the next 10 years. Now, is Graham an elite pass rusher? No, not yet at least. 2 of his 3.5 sacks came in one game against Minnesota, which makes his pass rush ceiling a bit of a question mark. But the tape shows a guy who holds up against double teams, owns the point of attack, and plays with the kind of leverage and motor that translates. You're not drafting him for 12 sacks a year. You're drafting him to be a disruptive force in the trenches for a decade. But let's say both Carter and Graham are gone. Now you're looking at names like Mike Green or Will Johnson. And here's the thing. You probably don't need to move up to get them. There's a real chance either at or both will still be on the board at pick 15. That's why you have to let the draft come to you unless it's for a blue-chip difference maker. Trading starters during the draft isn't common, but it's not unheard of. The last time it really happened was in 2022 when Marquise Brown was traded from Baltimore to Arizona. Same draft, A.J. Brown went from Tennessee to Philadelphia for a first and a fourth. That one, of course, turned out to be a disaster for the Titans. Their recent first-round track record? Treylon Burks hasn't hit. Isaiah Wilson was a miss. Caleb Farley couldn't stay healthy. It's been a tough stretch for Tennessee fans. So, yeah. It's rare, but a draft day trade involving a starter isn't impossible. And for the Jets, if they still believe Kyle Pitts is the unicorn he looked like coming out of Florida, swapping first-round picks and adding him to their offense might be a win-win. 2 starters instead of 1? That's not bad value. Now, if Atlanta stays put at 15, there are 3 names I think Falcons fans should be hoping for. Praying for, even. Number 1 on my board is Will Johnson. He's physical, polished, and would give Atlanta a true difference maker in the secondary. Number 2, linebacker Jalen Walker, a fast, instinctive playmaker with a ton of range. And number 3 is Mike Green, a pass rusher who might not be elite, but has the traits and college production you want from a mid-round edge guy. Now, let's be real. Johnson and Walker are long shots. You're probably not getting either unless the board falls perfectly. But Mike Green? That's the name to circle. We'll dive into him next. Now, I'm not going to say Mike Green is a lock to be available at pick 15, but if I had to bet on one player who could realistically fall that far, it would be him. From a probability standpoint, Green is a strong candidate to be there midway through the first round. And honestly, this would be a great pick for the Falcons. You're getting a player with solid college production and fantastic athletic traits. The numbers don't lie. Green is a physical specimen, and when you look at his workout results, they're impressive. But let's be real. Those testing numbers all come from his pro day. We've all seen it before. A little bit of bias creeps in when guys test in front of their home crowd. It's like how the 40-yard dash at Ohio State sometimes feels more like 39.5 yards than the full 40. We all know the deal. It's not something to ignore, but we can't overlook the fact that he's still an athletic freak and his production speaks for itself. Mike Green fits into that bucket of players who have shown a lot of promise and could take their game to the next level. He's someone you can feel good about as a prospect, but there's also the elephant in the room. There are 2 sexual assault allegations against him from high school and college. Now, I don't want to brush that off because it's a serious issue, but what I also want to point out is that we've seen athletes both in the college and pro ranks face similar allegations, and sometimes those allegations don't hold up, like we saw with punt god Matt Araiza and his case at San Diego State. That situation was later debunked, but it cost him an entire year of his career. However, we've also seen situations where these allegations are very real. It's complicated, and it's not something I'm going to dismiss lightly. What I will say is that unless there's clear and undeniable evidence, I don't think we should automatically remove a player from our boards based on allegations alone. That's not fair to the player, and it undermines the principle of due process. Investigations need to happen, but I don't think it should be a reason to completely disregard a prospect. So who do I think the Falcons will end up picking at 15? If I had to trust my gut, I'm saying that Roger Goodell will step up to the podium and announce, with the 15th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Mike Green, defensive end, Marshall. For a team that's been begging for a true pass rush, this would be a home run. I know Atlanta historically leans toward offense in round 1, but last year they threw us all a curveball. So, while there's always a chance they switch it up again, I feel pretty confident this time around that they'll go the more predictable route and take the pass rusher. Now the question is, which pass rusher will they pick? Green might not be the consensus number. One guy for everyone, but across the board, he's considered a higher-tier prospect than guys like Michael Williams or James Pierce. We saw this dynamic last year with Dallas Turner. A lot of people had him higher, but he wasn't even the first pass rusher selected. That honor went to UCLA's Laiatu Latu, who was picked by the Colts. Before we wrap up, I want to shout out a commenter from yesterday's video. Make sure to drop your thoughts in the comments, and you might get a special mention here on the show, so let's spin the wheel and see who's our viewer of the day. Big shout out to Reese. 2 claps for you. 1, 2. Thanks again for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and I'll see you all later for the live show. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you all.